Well, it's June, mid-June, early June, heading into July, and what that means in the city of Fitchburg is the Longsjo Bike Race. And that's one of the most exciting events that happens in this New England area, where we bring in racers from all over the world, professionals that come to race in Fitchburg in the Art Longsjo Bike Race.
Yeah.
And our guests this evening in the second half are the wife of Art Longsjo, Terry Longsjo. Thank you so much for coming.
Nice to meet both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
And Dick Ring, who was the announcer for 40 years for the Longsjo Bike Race.
Boy, it was a long time, Bill.
and also a skater and friend of Art Longsjo, correct?
Yes,
Dick?
yes.
And Bill White, who is the Media Relations Director for the Longsjo Bike Race. Bill, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Bill.
Really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk with us. It's just such an exciting event. It grows bigger and bigger every year. For the first few years that the race started out, was it just the singles? There was just the one circuit race downtown?
Yes, down on Main Street.
Yeah.
Just everybody came in for Criterium. It was a one-day event, and again, very exciting. And then they just expanded from there. So.
Yeah.
Now tell us a little bit about your husband. I mean, people have heard so much, an Olympic cyclist,
Right.
but also a skater.
Yeah, Olympic skater and Olympic cyclist.
Wasn't it kind of an accident that he was very good at both? I mean, wasn't it that the
Well, I
one
think
was
it
to...
started in skating. He was a speed skater first, and then the thing was you got to ride a bike to get in shape
on
for
the off-season.
cycling, as we well know, don't we, Dick? And
They clue you in when you're young.
yeah, they clue you when you get married too. And he liked them both. Don't ask me which one he liked the most. I think at the end he really likes cycling more than speed skating.
You didn't have to shovel off the ice.
Now, in those days, I mean, you didn't get these large sponsorships from shoe companies and bike companies and all of these things. You really, everything came out of your own pocket?
Yeah, came out of people were generous in what they could do back then. I mean, there wasn't really that much money. There were some retail places that did sponsor him. Kimball's and Son was very good to him. And then they'd have, dances, but they didn't do that much. There was just nothing around. So for him to go any place, it came out of the family's pocket, and it was rough for them.
Yeah.
And how did you meet?
I knew you would ask me that.
I've got to ask that.
Everybody does. Because see, I don't skate and I don't ride a bike.
That was going to be my next question.
I tell it before it happens. We were on a blind date, and he took me to my college prom at Becker Junior College, and that was the beginning of a love affair.
And now you obviously followed him in all the races.
Well, not in the beginning, because you remember back then you didn't go to the bike race with someone you weren't married to, or things like that. So you didn't do all those things.
How involved was he when you met? I mean, did you know what you were getting into?
No. And then actually he got involved in bicycle riding when we were going out, and that was the beginning of that. And that wasn't so bad, because then we'd go to Westboro and he'd have, should I tell him?
Sure.
he'd get down there to the championship, the state championships, and here he was in his loafers and shorts that didn't go with what should be done, and a bike that had no brakes, and the gears were wrong, and all this stuff, and everybody laughed at him, and he won the championship. So
they didn't laugh at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Though. I was in the event, and you thought you had a little bit of speed, and you're winding it up on the backstretch of the final lap, and all of a sudden coming over the top of you is this rocket. And you're looking at, that's the first thing, Terry, that I was looking at was the loafers. Didn't even have cycling shoes. And he just cleaned everybody's clothes.
Now, did you know him at that time, Dick?
Oh, he and I had skated together from the time we were 14, 15 years of age.
Really?
And as Terry had mentioned, then we get clued in by the older competitors. If you had any desires to make an Olympic team or skate or in international competition, you had to do something in the summer.
Well, how difficult was it at that time? Because they didn't have the big skating rinks that they do now. It seems like most communities around have a civic center with a skating rink. They didn't.
Shoveled.
Yeah, exactly. You get a double workout.
But how difficult is it?
So you didn't have to worry about like lifting weights because you were doing that by shoveling.
Joanne, you laugh about that, but it was a double workout. A crew of us would get together, And out on a lake, we'd lay out a track, and you're talking 6 laps of the mile. It's a pretty good sized track.
Oh, wow.
Everybody would take a section, dig in, and shovel it out, and then get a good workout. And hopefully you'd end up with a few days before it snowed again.
Yeah, and how difficult was that workout? Because you certainly don't have a smooth surface that the Zamboni went out on and took care of it for you.
You know, if you laugh about the youngsters today, they have manicured surfaces,
Yeah.
and everything is geared for the skater. And when we went to a skating meet, everybody was under the same conditions, and whatever you had facing you, everybody was in the same boat. So, but actually, I take a look at the schedule that some of the speed skaters have on their plate during the course of a season. We skated much more. One particular weekend, we skated the New England Indoor Championships in Worcester on a Saturday evening. We skated the Golden Skate Derby in the Boston area on Sunday in the afternoon, morning and afternoon, hopped the plane and went down to Flushing Meadows and skated the New York State Indoors Sunday evening. 3 complete championships in 2 days. Wow. Some of the skaters don't skate 3 championships in a month.
Yeah. Wow. That's really impressive. Wow.
It's amazing.
That's, you know, I was looking at Jason, and I was talking with the young gentleman that gets signed by the Red Sox, and you had him on earlier, and I asked him what he did in the off season, and you know, the workouts that he does are absolutely phenomenal. But that's exactly what you had to do.
Yeah.
You had to be in shape in order to compete the way we did. We'd roll from the skating season right into the bike season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is year
No
after
stopping.
year after
I mean,
year.
it just took off the skates and got on
just
the
a
bike.
given.
Wow.
But certainly the skating really, did it prepare you that much for the bike? I mean,
You get in the hills, and you were in excellent shape.
Yeah.
You keep this in mind, that,
quad muscles.
and I mention this to young riders. I ran the North American School of Bike Racing for 22 years, and I tell the youngsters, look, just for a diversion, get on some rollerblades. And I said 2 things happen. You're going to get yourself cardiovascularly fit, and you take a bicycle, your body weight is perched on a saddle. Where is it perched? On rollerblades. Your quads are taking all the punishment, and these are what are getting strong. As a result, when you get back on the bike and you get in a hilly stage race, you're going to do well. You're prepared for it.
Yeah.
So it's,
What type of person was Art Longsjo?
He was, well, let me first say something about Art I'd like everyone to know. I always said that he was born before his time, because if he was born today, I looked at Jason and I thought, that would have been Art Longsjo going someplace on a bicycle.
Yeah.
And that is the type of person Art was when I listened to him talk. One thing about Art that he had that I really loved him for was the fact that if he lost a race, it's because that other man was better than he was. And he would find out.
amen.
He would find out why he lost. It's not, there was never any bitterness from Art. That was one of his greatest qualities, even skating and in bicycle riding.
Yeah.
And I think, if I may
Go ahead.
say this, I think that's a testimony to the type of person he is, the fact that this race has been around for so long and people are so dedicated to the race.
Oh, yeah, and when Art died, it was, what do we do in memory of Art? And, you know, there were, you know what happens, there are many things everybody wants to do, but, so they had the monument up at Upper Common, the little triangle before, in his name. And that was the people of the city. Pennies, nickels, dimes went into big bottles and all this stuff to pay for that. And then we decided that maybe a living memorial would be the thing that would live on and on and on. And that's what happened. But we had a good working force like there is today, and that's what you need. You had the people that were dedicated. They were still in the grief, you know, as everybody else. So you work harder to produce what they did, and then you had all the referees. Everybody came.
Yeah.
Now, how old was Art when he passed away?
26.
26, and it was a car accident?
Yes, coming home from winning the Quebec-Montreal race. And apparently a bee got in the car. The road was a little slippery. And, you know, trying to get the bee out of the car, the gentleman that was driving tried to hold the car on the road, and it just went and hit a tree, and Art was sleeping, and it hit him right in the back of the... And we got up there before he passed away, but there was just one of those things, and it was better off than laying there and not, you know, being a vegetable.
Yeah.
But he did a lot. He accomplished a lot in his lifetime, and it was almost like, this is it, Art. Come and I got something better for you to do.
Just in case people don't know exactly what he did in terms of the Olympics, would you please go over that?
Yes. Art was the first man to make the Winter and Summer Olympics in the same year. That is his fame of life. And that was a great challenge. It was a great... I don't really think in the beginning he thought he was going to do this.
Well, when he came back from Cortina, Italy, that's where he represented the United States
And
during the
what year
winter
was
in the 56 Olympic Games.
56.
And when he came back, longtime friend of Terry's and mine, this Alex Goguen, which the Goguen family resided here in Fitchburg, and absolutely phenomenal athlete. And Alex kind of took him under his wing, and they started to work at that particular time. After the trials, I joined the Army, or I get drafted, let's put it that way. And I found myself, they had brought me out of Korea, and they stationed at Oakland Army Terminal. So when Art decided to make the Olympic team, he came out. We knew he didn't, he was short on rations, so we set it up in the barracks and got him a room, and we made sure he had a meal. We went to this Sergeant King, he was a terrific guy. We explained the situation, and he says, no problem whatsoever. And so he had a place to stay. No, he was going to get food. And I was listening when Terry said, as far as his mannerism when he competed, now you figure Art and I had competed against one another since we were youngsters. And with our crowd, it seemed as though that was the norm. And it was because of people like Alex Goguen, Eddie Dame, Al Broadhurst. These are people that we looked up to. They were our role models. And as a result, when you get on the starting line with any of our crew, you were in a war. And it was go right to the finish line. But afterwards, as Terry said, there was no animosity. And if somebody beat you, the first thing you did was shake their hand. Internally, you're saying to yourself, I'm going back to the drafting board, and next week I'm going to come out with a few more guns and see if I can't take you down. But that was the norm in our day.
I used to always tease Dick, you were a dirty racer that day.
Oh, man. But it was wonderful skating with our crew, and Art was a phenomenal athlete. Alex Goguen brought the best of Art right to the forefront. And you know, Terry knows this. Behind every great athlete, there's somebody that inspires them, and Alex was that gentleman.
So basically, he trained for the Summer Olympics at an Army base.
Well, he was in shape when he got out there.
But
All
I mean,
we were doing.
But that's where he did his. He really got ready.
While the Olympic trials were going on, we just housed him. He had trained back up here in the mountains.
They were going on in California?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then he shot out to California. He did all his training in the area, basically up in the Berkshires. And then when he made the final trip out to California, then when he landed, we made sure we went down, picked him up. We made sure, you know, because we knew he was on short rations.
Yeah.
So like every athlete, you know. It's funny you mentioned about back in those days, the athletes, you couldn't make any money. Avery Brundage was in charge of the Olympic Committee. And you accounted for every dime that anybody gave you. You had to have an accounting for that money. That's why we ducked off into Canada and raced under an assumed name, because they had a rule up there that it's over and done with now.
You're telling a lot of things you shouldn't be telling.
that they had a rule up there, as long as you weren't making your living at the sport, you could accept money.
Yeah.
So I could go up there, and at that particular time, you know, I was bringing up a gang of kids, and I could go up and make $80, $90 in a weekend, and, which was good money back then, and have a lot of fun doing it. Until finally they were catching up with us. I mean, they knew some Americans were coming up there trying to figure out who they were. They look at the results, they don't recognize this name. But it was excellent racing up there. It was a lot of fun.
Now, were you able to, would people give you enough sponsorship money so that you didn't have to work a regular job?
No.
No,
You had to
no.
work your regular job
Yeah.
and train
Yeah.
after you.
Oh, sure. You know, I was
And
bringing
you-
up a gang of kids. I was working as a pipe fitter, and your battery's 3/4 run down when you get home from work,
Yeah.
working on construction.
Yeah.
Now you're out shoveling off a lake, and at night training when it's, you know, down below zero. But this is what you had to do
Yeah.
if you wanted to be competitive on the weekends.
You know, we talked
a
about
great
the
Rocky
love
movie.
of yeah, really. We talked about the love of baseball that Jason
Well,
obviously has,
that's
and I'm
it.
thinking, wow, what I mean, this is just a love of the sports.
That's why I loved it. When I was
Yeah.
out in the hallway talking to him, I says, man, he's got it. He's got it together.
You can relate to someone like that
Yeah.
because you can see. That's why I said I saw Art,
Yeah, yeah.
because that's how
Oh,
he.
God.
And,
is-
and he's a nice kid.
He's
too.
a very
He
nice
really is.
young man.
Class
Yes.
act.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So-
He is, without question.
Now, just going back to the Olympics. So where was the Summer Olympics that year?
The Summer Olympics were in Melbourne, Australia.
Australia.
Oh.
So they were held like in September, you know,
Right.
later in the
Right.
year because of their summer.
And that was back when we used to have the Olympics all in the same year.
Yes, right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And that was a nice trip too, because then they went down to Hawaii and they went down to Fiji and
Oh, they had to
Yeah.
skip through the Pacific to get
did you
over
go
to
along?
Australia.
no, not we couldn't afford it.
Oh my
You
goodness.
could just raise enough money for Art to go and
Well, the United States paid for him to go to
do the
Australia,
Olympics, yes.
Yeah.
but the money came. I think Lester Kimball gave him a lot of money to go out there.
Yeah.
But now, did the United States subsidize the team for their equipment?
No.
So he
They
had
would
to have
give
his
me
own.
uniforms.
Uniform.
Did he have
but, you
to- he
know,
didn't have
all
to
your
bring his own
skates,
bike?
you have your,
Yeah,
all your
yeah.
And they didn't pay
own
for his
skates,
bike.
your
No.
bikes and
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, bikes. I suppose you needed
Yeah.
more than
Schwinn,
one.
one thing that
Schwinn,
Schwinn did, Alfred Schwinn out in Chicago, what they did for
In the
PR,
track bikes.
yeah, they said that all Olympic teams, we will sponsor build all their equipment, custom bikes for the riders. And they did this once every 4 years, and of course that was excellent PR for the company.
Sure.
But that's basically all you got.
Wow.
What type of bike were we talking about in those days as compared to the bikes that
You know,
have today?
I laugh. I take a look at these pieces of machinery that are on the road today, and my eyes come out of my head. Think about this, folks. Now, on the rear cluster, we thought this was top shelf, 4 cogs on the rear cluster, 2 on the front. We had 8 speeds. When they went up to 5 on the back and 2 on the front, 10 speeds, we were in heaven.
Yeah.
So that's basically what we had. But even when Art was riding, she mentioned a track bike. A track bike is a fixed gear. There's no coast, similar to a circus bike. You can pedal forward or backward if you've got the proper balance. And there's no brakes on them. And we would ride 25 and 50 mile criteriums. The Tour of Somerville, right up until 1951, the only thing you could ride was a track bike. Now here's 125 riders, everybody on bikes with no brakes, dropping in and out of corners on city streets.
Oh my
but your
goodness.
bike handling skills were terrific due to the fact that we all came off the track.
Well, I'm assuming when you're saying a track bike that it would be a bike that you'd use in a velodrome. and
Exactly,
go
that
around
is
and
it.
around
That's
and around.
That is
exactly
it.
right. Yeah.
That's it.
But they
But
said,
you
okay,
use
now
that
take
on the
that
road.
bike and do it on a
on the
city
road.
street.
On the
Yeah.
road.
And we rode criteriums on the road.
So you had 2 choices. You could go really fast.
Now I still ride my
crash.
track bike on the road.
Do
I
you?
cheat. I got one little brake on the front, but you know,
I was going to
Just-
say, you look like you could still compete, Dick.
He
I
is.
do. I skate marathons. I skate
Yeah.
25 and 50K marathons.
Just to make you laugh about the
Wow.
track bike.
That's great.
Is that when Art trained, he in the beginning was on a track bike because he had no money to buy anything else,
Yeah.
and he used to train up the mountain. Mount Wachusett.
Massachusetts.
And that's really
Is
why
that-
we put that piece.
I was going to say, is
think
that
that's
why
You
one of
put
the
many miles
stages
up
of the
on that
criterium
road, that's for
is
sure.
there?
Yeah.
on a track bike, now coming down with no brakes.
Oh, God.
Your legs are nothing but a blur. I went over the Kangamangas Highway with a friend of mine in a group, and we're dropping down in where Loon Mountain was, and this little Scottish friend of mine, he's beside me, he says, Dick, I kind of see your legs, they're nothing but a blur. But this is what we were used to.
That's right. Bill, hearing all of these stories and the history of the Longsjo. Now, you've been involved for how many years?
3 years.
3
3
years.
years. And actually, I got involved in 1987 for a couple of years, and then I moved away, and now
Was
I'm
your
back.
interest, do you like to ride, or was that your first interest in getting involved? Or?
Yeah, actually, I was working at the newspaper at the time, and I was an avid cyclist. I was never this caliber right here, or Art, obviously. And I was a cycling enthusiast, and I heard about this race, and it was just kind of this race came together, but there was no publicity per se. It was just this big event came to town and kind of went away. So I took it on my own. I said, well, why not publish a special publication or a tab on it?
Yeah.
So we put the whole thing together, and I came down race day, and I remember walking up and down Main Street passing out the race publication, and this would have been 87 or 88. And so we started I think we started that tradition and stayed with it, and are obviously going to publish one
Just
this
brought
year.
it to a new plateau.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
'Cause what year then was it that the four-stage criterion was developed?
The race start 80s in the 80s, 'cause
Yeah.
for 20 years it was just
The
Single day.
single day.
50
Because
mile.
then I retired from organizing it, and then I went with the Fitchburg Cycle Club, really took it over.
Right.
Mark Reardon and then
And
Dr. Ray.
Willako.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was then 2 or 3 years into that's when Dr. Ray said we should do something else,
Yeah.
and that's when it.
A real classy guy. You know, he and
Yeah.
I both retired from the program at the same time, and he was a gentleman,
Yeah.
a real class act, and he had a vision, and his vision was to get the race on stable footing, and of course he knows a great many high-powered people in the area that were on the same page, and they're trying to get a trust put together so this race will go on forever.
Well, I think this race, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it is the equivalent in cycling to the Boston Marathon.
Yes.
Would
Yes.
you say that?
Absolutely.
Because I know when everyone from around the world wants to come and ride in Fitchburg, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, they do.
We've had, in the past years, we've had a few racers on the show, and every single time, you know, we've had different ones, different years, and they always talk about, like, this is such a highlight for them
Yeah.
in their racing year.
Well, they like coming, everyone likes to come to Fitchburg, first of all, because they love the people, and I'm sure people don't realize it. They love the way the race is organized. They have any problem, they have someone to go to, and they have no problem, because then someone will take care of that. It's just wonderful. They love it. They
How
just
about the
love it.
hospitality from the firemen down at the fire
Oh, yeah,
station?
yeah.
And this is from day one. From day one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they always made the riders feel welcome.
Yeah.
And
Everything was in place,
Yeah.
and it just continued, and like in Bill's group, they're making it more and more and more. And
I think every year when you go down to the bike race and you see all the people that come from out of town and how colorful and lively downtown
Yes.
is, it brings you back to a time when downtown
Right,
Fitchburg
right.
was very active all the time.
yeah, and bringing that, I have to tell you something. I got involved with Gail. Gail had a.
Oh, Gail Bloom.
Gail Bloom had her. Is she? Yeah, did she?
she's- yeah.
Were there the artist? You know,
Yes, she's
people
a wonderful artist.
taking. We had a campaign, and now you look at this, and there were many of them for the. Now these are kids in school,
Yeah.
and see,
that would be,
I saw something in this immediately, and probably Dick or a bike rider would. I looked at this picture and I thought, that is Fitchburg on the last day of the race when it's always 102 degrees and that's the sun, and there's that poor bike rider trying to come up the main
And I love
street.
at the bottom, and it says, pedal your heart out.
Yeah,
Boy,
But doesn't
oh boy.
that remind you
yeah.
of that? And this young person was thrilled to be, he got first place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
and this is
that's
a
really
middle
nice.
school student too.
Middle
who made
school.
that. Yeah, that's a beauty. That is beautiful.
Just we wanted to show it. So we've been doing this with the kids in school, and then Frank Healy did something with writing an essay on volunteering.
Oh.
Well, I went to present the coupons for the bicycles they won, and I'm telling you, those 4 people that won I could never have done that, even now in my adult.
Yeah.
And these were young children. It was amazing what they wrote, but they were getting a bike, and they were all thrilled, and that was.
Wow.
You know, you take a look at all of this that's going on because of Gail, Bill, and the efforts that they put in. And Terry and I, we sit back and we say, you know, everything's in good hands.
Yeah.
Oh, that must make you feel
Sure,
good.
we
Yeah.
you know we
Yeah.
started from scratch,
Yeah.
and I rode the race for the first 3 years, and then Terry came down on the 4th year, 1964. Terry came off the podium, and I was on the front line, all suited up, ready to go. We're waiting for the start, and Terry says, "Dick, we're in trouble." Terry, what's the matter? Herb Hoffman didn't show up. He was supposed to be the announcer for the Cycling Federation. I said, Terry, stall him for 5 minutes. My car was around the corner. I walked off the line, hustled over to the car, threw the bike in the trunk, and didn't even change. Just went back up, grabbed the mic, and that was it. 40 years later, I retired last year. So that's how I get started in announcing bike races. And I thought that was an absolute blast. That was fun.
But Longsjo wasn't the only bike race that you did.
Oh my goodness, no.
traveled.
I had a full plate. I traveled
But
New
see how
England.
popular you became because of
because of
Longsjo.
Terry. Because of Terry. And I would announce from April until the get into the cyclocross season till almost into December.
Wow.
And this is every single weekend. I could be in Concord, New Hampshire on a Saturday, and at 8 o'clock in the morning I got to start down in Danbury, Connecticut. You know, so you just zigzag in New England.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. It was an absolute phenomenal ride for me for 40 years.
Wow.
Terrific.
Well, you know, just talking about the Longsjo itself, I think you started it as a celebration
Yes.
of Art's life.
Right.
And I think, you know, when you talk about like that picture and all the things like the volunteerism essays and the pictures and all of the stuff that the Sentinel does to, and the Telegram and everybody does to really promote it, and of course the wonderful corporate announcers, it's become a celebration in itself.
It
It's a
has.
celebration of the race itself now.
But see, it shows people caring and helping. And this group that's putting this race together is just unbelievable what they're doing.
It's like a well-oiled machine with Bill and his crew. I mean, they don't miss a beat.
Yeah.
And very, very professional. They hold their meetings, and they get a game plan. Gail, Bill, the whole gang of them, and on race day it goes off like a Swiss clock.
Now, Terry and Dick, when you had the first couple of races, how many riders did you get to come?
Well, the first year we had really quite a few because they all came out for the memorial.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. I think we had something like 83 riders. I looked at the pamphlet one day because we were talking about that. The second year probably wasn't so much, but then it just kept growing.
Yeah.
And Art's longtime friend, Guy Moran, was the one that won the first.
Oh,
and
really?
this is Guy got on the starting line with a focus in his eyes. There wasn't anybody in that field that was going to beat him on that day. And he was serious.
Yeah.
And he did. He won. And I talked to him after the race, and he said, he had tears in his eyes. He said, this one was for Art.
Yeah.
See, he was with Art the night before he died.
Oh.
And he
wow.
Art raced on his team for the Quebec Montreal. So they were very close up there, like Dick and Art were here.
Yeah. I just want to say before we get too far, we should probably tell people exactly what the dates are this year and what the different stages are on each of those dates.
Sure. Just grab my poster here and cheat. Well, the first day is Thursday, June 30th, and that's going to be the Best Western time trial, and that's going to get started up at the Best Western in Fitchburg.
What great hosts they are.
Yeah, and they do a great job. So again, that gets underway Thursday, and that's where the riders race against the clock. And then on Friday, we're going to do the Aubuchon Hardware Circuit race, and that loops get started at the Wallace Civic Center, and they come up that nice gentle hill.
Gentle slope, Pearl Street.
Pearl Street.
That, if, for the spectators that live in the area, that is a dynamite event to watch.
Yes, it is.
Bring the kids out, cost you
Yeah.
nothing. And
That's a tough little
as
hill.
Bill was saying, coming up Pearl Street for the finish of the bike race,
It's really
that's a very,
exciting.
very
I
difficult
gotta say though, I
climb.
Yeah.
drove over Ringe Road today, towards the college, and I'm a little nervous about the potholes. It's been a rough winter, and there's a lot of.
The city's good about they'll get out there and
there's
patch
a lot
those.
that needs to be done. Yeah.
So that's on Friday, July 1st, and like for instance, the men will ride 78 miles, the pro men, and then the women will ride 40 miles. And then on Saturday we have the Unitil Road Race. That is always extremely exciting,
Yeah.
and
Up Mount Washington.
I was just absolutely amazed. I heard the first time I ever saw this, I saw this police cruiser coming down the road with their flashers and siren, going like 70 some miles an hour. I said, there must be a major accident going on. It was the lead car and these bike riders on his bumper, chasing him down the mountain.
The very first year that they held it as a stage race, the state police were the lead vehicles. And I talked to the gentleman that was driving the lead vehicle after the race, and he was just about wet. And he said, Dick, he said, the very first lap, no problem, the riders are behind me, and I, stepped on the gas, and he said, I looked at my speedometer, I was doing 60 going down the hill in the middle of the road. I looked at both sides. Riders are coming by me. He said, instead of panicking, I've got to hold this car steady. I've got to hold the speed steady. You were talking 150 riders coming by him. When everything flattened out, they all moved over, let them go out in front, and he said, you can bet your bippy, on the next lap, I was about a half a mile in front of him. He said, they weren't coming by me. He was scared to death. He said, boy, oh boy.
I can't imagine coming down that hill on a bike at that speed.
I'll never forget that moment. That's a great story.
My goodness.
And then, so that's Saturday, and that's obviously, there's a lot of nice spots to watch the race there, and a lot of people get up on the common near the church in Princeton Center. So that's a nice vantage point. You watch them climb the hill
That's
there.
the feed hill up
Yep.
there. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of action with the riders,
Yeah.
and that's an important part of that race, especially, Terry, you mentioned the heat. If they miss a feed, they're snookered. They don't get anything for another 10 miles, so they could be in deep trouble.
Isn't that really a nice town event too? They have booths and food and
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Things
the
like
church
that,
puts
yeah.
on a nice, they're going to do a breakfast,
Yeah.
and then a lunch
Again,
and a dinner.
they're very, very hospitable.
Yep. And then, so that's the Unitil Road Race on July 2nd. And then on Sunday, where it all started, the Downtown Criterium, Workers' Credit Union Criterium. And that's going to be 50 miles for the men, and that'll start at about around 3 o'clock. And then the women will go off around 1-ish, and they'll be riding 25 miles. And that's always exciting.
Yeah.
that is
Usually
it's a
the big-
very
the big-
exciting event, yeah.
Thing for me, announcing the race for so many years, what we would try to do during the course of the day, we would run preems for the riders, and always a great deal of action going for them, because you have to realize they travel thousands of miles during the course of a summer, and any money they can earn on preems goes into their pocket, pays expenses, equipment, whatever. And usually at 3 to go, I would try to raise $600 and have a shootout, $600 preem. And there was one rider on this particular year, he said, I figured I had a chance of winning this race. And he said, and then I thought about my rent money. And he said, I went for the $600, a bird in the hand. He ended up fourth in the race. But he said, I wanted the 6 bills in the palm of my hand. Thank you, my rent is paid, now I can live for another month. So that's what it meant to him.
Talk about some of the tremendous talent that has come to Fitchburg over the years. Obviously, the most obvious one is Lance Armstrong.
Right.
92, then they left right from Fitchburg after a couple of weeks in the area, flew off to the Olympics
Yeah.
in Barcelona.
Wow.
And then we had Eric Hayden, who was, again, an Olympic skater.
1980,
and
biggest
a rider.
crowd I ever saw in Fitchburg.
Yeah.
They say, the arena was so full, they were sitting on the rafters. Well, all through this town, they were sitting on the roofs of all the buildings. That's how this town was loaded to get a look at Beth Hayden, who ended up winning the women's race, and Eric got away with 4 riders, and I explained to the crowd, folks, This is a sport that it's not a given that he's going to win. He's doing an excellent job out there. He did. He ended up in 4th spot.
Wow.
That's tremendous.
Fantastic
Do you
rider.
think someday Lance Armstrong will come back for one more race?
Well, he might.
He was a classic
I
guy.
would probably
Yeah.
think probably the 50th. We'll see if we get him back.
Oh, that'd be
Oh,
nice.
that'd be nice,
Be
yeah.
real nice. So
All
that's going to be
right,
on, starts on Thursday, July 1st, and goes
Yeah,
through
June-
Sunday.
June 30th.
June
Is it
30th.
June
But
30th?
actually,
I'm
the I forgot is our opening ceremony Wednesday night, June 29th at the Best Western. We're going to have all-you-can-eat pasta buffet,
Yeah.
and we'll be selling tickets for that. And it's a family event, so we're inviting everybody down for that. Terry will be there, and hopefully Dick can make it. And we will just have some festivities, and the riders will be there. And
It's a great
it'll be
night.
Great night.
And you know, we didn't talk about, but maybe Steve could
Maybe we can
focus in
hold
on
this-
this
yeah,
picture.
get that ready for
And
Les.
it's
Yeah.
a picture of Art in his last.
It was the pictures of Art. The skating picture is the picture in Davos when he was over there for the Olympics.
Uh-huh.
The bicycle, one of the bicycle pictures
Very
is
cool.
his last bicycle race, and
Thank you all so much.
I know I
for
saw him.
coming. Thank you.
That's
And hope
Thank
to
you.
get you back again.
okay.